Hello students, so for this video we are looking at the reasons for defeat. Okay, now this picture was taken as the Japanese was actually signing the surrender document, and you can see this guy which is on the right, General Douglas MacArthur. We'll learn about him a bit more in Korean War. He accepted the surrender. Okay, so we're going to learn the different aspects of why Japan, being so massive and so strong, was finally defeated. Okay, and you can see that the areas that Japan actually conquered was actually a lot. It was massive. Okay, so what happened? Alright, so remember the acronym? U offer violence, N already. U stands for USA strength, O stands for overextension of Japanese empire, V stands for quick victory, E stands for Europe, the war in Europe ended, A stands for the atomic bomb. So the first reason is definitely the strength of United States, and even though if you remembered about Pearl Harbor, that USA actually was destroyed in terms of the military, the naval power, you know, all this kind of the warcrafts, the aircrafts, all were destroyed, but USA is definitely bigger than Japan, and Japan sort of underestimated USA, and Japan sort of like woke up a sleeping bear giant, you know, those kind of things, because at that time America was actually just practicing isolation and just punishing Japan by not selling oil or not giving oil. But once Japan decided to actually bomb Pearl Harbor, then that was it. Okay, USA just decided to fight back. All right, so these were the strength, economic strength, the largest industrial power. They had willing citizens, and the women. Remember we talked about the women's role. They contributed, and they just had more. They just had more resources compared to Japan. All right. All these are some of the pictures to sort of influence even women to help out in World War II. Okay, so Japan was economically strong and militarily better than the Japanese. Okay, so this is an example of the aircraft carrier, and you can imagine that, you know, you could have like 5 or 6 airplanes there. Okay, and all this will help in the different kinds of raids or different kinds of attacks that they did on Japan. An example of the attack is the Doolittle raid. All right, so what do? They actually just dropped a lot of bombs in parts of Tokyo, Kobe, Nagoya, Yokohama, and it was a daily thing because they just wanted the Japanese to surrender. Okay, all right. And because of this, it did change the mindset of the Japanese, okay, because they felt that the Japanese now saw that the Japanese military was not actually very strong, and they were actually quite vulnerable, in fact. Okay, so these are other examples of battles. Coral Sea Battle, which took place in the Coral Sea, very near Australia. The Japanese command was intercepted by the Americans, okay, and the Americans won. Battle of Midway as well. Okay, Midway was named specifically because it was Midway Islands, and again the Americans could intercept what the Japanese were doing, and it really sort of hampered the Japanese, made the Japanese felt not felt worse only, you know, it really destroyed a lot of Japanese carriers. Okay, so this was the one. All right, they ambushed, and it was called Operation Vengeance. All right, and the bombing of mainland Japan. Okay, so all this sort of like really made Japan really weak because America was just superior in terms of military. Okay, the Americans also had a strategy, which was the island hopping. So from one island to one island to one island. They didn't just go ahead and conquer Japan because they wanted Japan to have no resources. So that's why they decided to conquer back all the islands in Southeast Asia. All right. This was the guy that came up with the idea about island hopping. Okay, now the second reason for Japan to surrender was definitely overextension of Japanese empire. We talk about it. We talk about the very fact that Japan was quite greedy, expanded so much, was stretched thin. The key word here is stretched thin. All right, and they couldn't control the entire Southeast Asia due to the lack of manpower, resources, and funds. Okay, and because of that, slowly but surely the American forces as well as the Allied forces were winning the war. Okay, so all these areas. All right. Now the third reason for Japanese to surrender was definitely the quick victory. I mean, you've got images of people in very horrible conditions like this. Okay, you've got a lot of propaganda that actually showed that the Japanese was bad, and it didn't help that the Japanese was also quite stubborn and unwilling to surrender. So both of these things combined, the Allied power, which is made up of specifically just two countries, America as well as Britain, was really trying to fight their utmost or their best to get rid of the Japanese. Okay, and also because the Japanese being very stubborn, they also didn't want to surrender. So what they did was they always went to sort of sacrifice themselves. We call them the kamikaze fighter planes or fighter jets, and it wasn't the Allied powers' resources. So they thought, okay, let's just end this war as quickly as possible, and that literally helped them to be motivated to sort of fight the Japanese to the last battle, or to the last island, or to the last man. Okay. The next reason for Japanese surrender is definitely war ended in Europe. The very fact that war ended in Europe, it really does help that, because now all resources and all manpower is now just specifically focused on Japan. Okay, Hitler died, and it helped that all the resources again is just focused towards Japan, and Japan didn't have a friend anymore. Okay. Now, the fifth reason is definitely we cannot escape the fact that the atomic bomb did change the way the war was actually played out, or the war was actually fought. The very fact that these bombs actually was created in the United States initially was for the Germans, but Germans surrendered prior to that. Okay, and the very fact that the destruction of this atomic bomb was just so much, and they decided to drop the bomb in both Hiroshima initially, and then after that is Nagasaki. Okay, and the impact of the bomb. So once, I guess, the Japanese military, the Japanese people, and the Japanese emperor saw the effect, they realized that, okay, it is time for them to surrender, because the impact and the devastation and the deaths was just too much. Okay, so again, key reasons for Japan's defeat, always go to the acronym. U offer violence and N already. U stands for USA, O stands for overextension, V stands for victory, World War II in Europe, and atomic bomb. Okay, this is based on the notes that was given. All right, the ones in red are actually the link. I'm just showing it in the video. You can always pause it at any time to just read it. Okay, so take a look at all these resources again, the materials again. This is just a very quick recap about Japan. Okay, all right, and I hope it helps you to navigate and to understand a little bit more what you already know. Okay, so see you again. Goodbye, historians. Bye bye.